Mom was preoccupied with this lamp that had appeared on one of the end tables in the living room next to the couch. And she kept asking Grandma, like, oh, that's a new lamp. Where'd you get that? And Grandma's like, oh, I don't know. I've had it for a while. I don't remember where I bought that. And I was like, Mom, why do you care where Grandma get this lamp from? Like, why do you care? And she said, oh, no reason. It just coincidentally looks very similar to the one in our hotel room this weekend.
From NCPR and the Adirondack Center for Writing, this is The Howl. True stories, no notes. I'm Ethan Shanty. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of the show. You're going to notice that it sounds a little different today, and that's because I'm recording this at the Hale Cemetery in Norfolk. I just pulled in, and I'm about to walk up to the family plot, actually. Just got to the family plot. I know that sounds bleak, but I promise this episode is actually going to be fun. Today we'll hear from Meg MacDonald. We'll hear about her grandmother, who she says was a really good thief. And her story is what made me want to come down here and say hello to my grandfather, Hermie. Hermie has a headstone right next to my Uncle Dean, my dad, who has a can of old Milwaukee beer that someone left for him, as well as my Aunt Joanne. There's an American flag planted right next to my grandpa's headstone. And you know, this show is all about storytelling, and I think that grandparents are the keepers of like this great secret story. And you know, that secret is who our parents used to be, because kids can never really know. When we come into the world, you know, we think that our parents are fully formed, that they're infallible, and we've got to become adults to realize how flawed they were a lot of the time. But we can never truly know what they were like unless we ask their parents. Well, I couldn't do that. You know, my grandpa Hermie, I don't know his story. His headstone says June 22nd, 1916 to April 18th, 1976. There's an insignia here for World War II saying that he served in the U.S. Army, and that's like all I know about him. I know when he was born. I know when he died. I know that he liked hunting and that he worked at Alcoa and that he could be a pretty mean bastard, but like that's all I know. I never got a chance to know anything more about him or for him to tell me that secret story about my dad. And when I got here, I thought that I'd tell you about Hermie's hot temper. I know that's one of the things that my dad inherited from him. But the more I thought about it, the more I wondered, did my dad also get his love of storytelling from Hermie? I heard hundreds of stories from my dad about all the wild things that he got up to when he was a teenager, the cars that he flipped, the bar fights that he got into, the near accidents, all the crazy things that probably should have killed him. And I learned how to tell stories through my dad, and I've got to think, maybe he learned how to spin a good yarn from his dad, Hermie. Hermie was dead long before I was around, but I still feel this really powerful connection to him. Maybe it's because I can see the resemblance in photos. Maybe it's because my family's been camping on the same stretch of land for over 100 years. And maybe it's because I walked a lot of the same ground he did when I worked at Alcoa. Whatever it is, I feel like I owe some part of my love of storytelling to him, since he gave the world my favorite storyteller, my dad. So I guess I'm just spending a little bit of time here saying thanks to Hermie. Okay, so let's get to today's story. This is Meg MacDonald live on stage at the Howl Story Slam in Saranac Lake.
My grandmother, Evelyn, was one of the most beautiful, witty, fun, kind, warm, mischievous women I've ever known. And she also had no heed for rules, which was great as her granddaughter, and particularly for her grandsons, my two older brothers, because she was normally too busy doing wonderful, warm, grandmotherly stuff, like baking delicious baked goods, to pay much attention to the totally inappropriate movies that they were watching in the front room as prepubescent boys. They managed to convince her to watch Private Resort. I don't know if you've heard of it. Totally not appropriate for kids. But their reasoning was it was because it had Johnny Depp in it, and that was enough for her. So one of my last memories that I had of her was when she was about 90 years old. She was suffering from dementia, but still, still fairly sharp. She was in the nursing home. And I mentioned that she was beautiful, which meant that my mom and I would sometimes get calls from the nursing home saying, Ms. MacDonald, there was a man in your grandmother's bed this morning. It was totally consensual. We checked with her. No one was hurt. Everything was fine. And I was like, okay. So I called Grandma and I said, Grandma, what are you doing? Who is this guy? And she was like, look, if I want to snuggle with a man, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And I was like, bet. Get you some, Grandma. So while she was prone to be a bit of a heartbreaker with the menfolk, there was the odd occasion where she also got her heart broken. And my mother and I went to visit her in the nursing home one afternoon. We were having tea in the dining hall, and she was telling us that morning her boyfriend had broken up with her, and he said that he was going to see another woman down the hall. And so she was very sad and upset. So I said, Grandma, what did you say to him? Like, what did you say to him? And she said, well, I told him that's the last time he's ever going to see these. And she proceeded to flash the entire dining hall. I thought this was hilarious. My mother did not think this was hilarious. And so she thought, I think it's time for us to take Grandma to a more, private location so that we can visit. And it was a nice day, so she said, why don't we go visit in the garden? We'll take Grandma out there. So it was actually not that much of a private location because it abutted a very busy parking lot. And Grandma, having dementia, she forgot she already told this story. And Mom and I were not quite following along as quickly as we could, because right at the moment of the big reveal, a whole family was walking into the nursing home at that time. So Mom, for a third time, wheeled her inside and said, okay, it's time to just hang out in your room for a little bit, I think. And as two nurses came in to say hello to us and check in on Grandma Evelyn, she launched into it for a third time, and thankfully we caught it just in time. And so that's who she was towards the end of her life, but that's also kind of who she was throughout her whole life. And when I was remembering my grandmother and my childhood, I thought, okay, well, there's a few red flags that kind of stuck out in a few memories, 3 memories in particular of my childhood. And the first was that she had this really wonderful maroon Astro van, and it was completely gutted in the back. There were no seats, no carpeting, certainly no seat belts. And one day appeared this ugly plaid love seat. And it was not tethered or tied down to anything. And she wasn't the best driver. And my brothers and I would race to the van, and whoever the first 2 people were to reach the van got to sit on the love seat because that's all there was room for. The third unfortunate, smaller, younger sister, normally they wouldn't have the chance to sit on this love seat, which meant not only did you have to dodge the love seat as it was like sliding around in the back of the van, you yourself were rolling around like a loose water bottle. And we were having so much fun, even, with my near-death experience, that we didn't ask Grandma, like, hey, where'd this couch come from? We didn't think to ask that. The second memory that kind of popped up later for me was, I remember my mom and my grandmother had taken a trip away. They'd stayed in a hotel, had a little fun trip, came back. And a week after that, Mom and I went over to have lunch with her. And I was young at the time. I was probably like 7 or 8. And Mom was preoccupied with this lamp that had appeared on one of the end tables in the living room next to the couch. And she kept asking Grandma, like, oh, that's a new lamp. Where'd you get that? And do you remember when you bought that? And Grandma's like, oh, I don't know. I've had it for a while. I don't remember where I bought that. And I was like, Mom, why do you care where Grandma get this lamp from? Like, why do you care? And she said, oh, no reason. It just coincidentally looks very similar to the one in our hotel room this weekend. And me being this kid, I was like, that's a weird coincidence, Ma. Like, weird. Spoiler alert, it was not a coincidence. And the third memory that really brought it home for me was, it was about 5th or 6th birthday. I remember getting off the bus and running to the house and being super stoked because my mom was always really good about decorating the house. It was Barbie themed this time. And there was colorful streamers and colorful cake and like Barbie figurines all over the place. But my grandmother had really pulled out all the stops with my birthday present. And I knew that something cool was going to be waiting for me. So I ran to my bedroom, I threw open the door, and there I saw not just one cool Barbie McDonald's Happy Meal like collectible, I saw the entire McDonald's Happy Meal display case that you would get from the lobby. And if you haven't seen those, they're about this tall and this wide, covered in plastic, full of that month's figurines, right? And again, I walk in there, I was like, this is the coolest gift ever. Who gets a McDonald's display case for their 5th birthday? And so again, didn't ask where it came from. So finally in adulthood, looking back on my childhood, I was like, man, Grandma was cool. She was wonderful, sweet, kind. She'd always, give us hugs, good baker, all of that stuff. And while I knew all these things about Grandma to be very true, I did have the revelation that she was also a really good thief. Thank you.
Thanks so much for being with us for The Howl today. Come back next week for a ridiculous story from game show aficionado Ryan Vickers.
So we started the proceedings. The music blares out of the speakers. Ryan, 61, come on down. Ryan, 203, come on down.
This show is written, produced, and edited by me. I'm Ethan Shanty. Our theme music is by famous letter writer of Plattsburgh. David Summerstein is my script editor. Doyle Dean is our production manager. Caitlin Kelly handles social media. And Bill Hanel is our director of digital services. You can support this show, hear more stories, and find out when we're going to be telling stories near you by visiting ncpr.org/howl. And don't forget, you can get even more stories by subscribing to the Howl newsletter. New stories delivered directly to your inbox every Wednesday. From the Hale Cemetery in Norfolk, New York, this is The Howl. I'm Ethan Shanty.